In this video, we are going to explore more about types of cow milking. These milking types are hand milking, vacuum bucket milking, and milking using parlors. Dairy farming is a class of agriculture for long-term production of milk, which is processed either on the farm or at a dairy plant, either of which may be called a dairy, for eventual sale of a dairy product. Dairy farming has a history that goes back to the early Neolithic era, around the 7th millennium BC, in many regions of Europe and Africa. Before the 20th century, milking was done by hand on small farms. Beginning in the early 20th century, milking was done on large-scale dairy farms, with innovations including rotary parlors, the milking pipeline, and automatic milking systems that were commercially developed in the early 1990s. Worldwide, leading dairy industries in many countries including India, the United States, China, and New Zealand serve as important producers, exporters, and importers of milk. Since the late 20th century, there has generally been an increase in total milk production worldwide, with around 827,884,000 tons of milk being produced in 2017, according to the FAO. In the last century or so, larger farms specializing in dairy alone have emerged. Large-scale dairy farming is only viable where either a large amount of milk is required for production of more durable dairy products, such as cheese, butter, etc., or there is a substantial market of people with money to buy milk, but no cows of their own. In the 1800s, von Thunen argued that there was about a 100-mile radius surrounding a city where such fresh milk supply was economically viable. The dairy cow produces large amounts of milk in its lifetime. Production levels peak at around 40 to 60 days after calving. Production declines steadily afterwards until milking is stopped at about 10 months. The cow is dried off for about 60 days before calving again. Within a 12 to 14-month intercalving cycle, the milking period is about 305 days or 10 months long. Among many variables, certain breeds produce more milk than others within a range of around 6,800 to 17,000 kilograms of milk per year. Let's start with hand milking. Centralized dairy farming as we understand it primarily developed around villages and cities where residents were unable to have cows of their own due to a lack of grazing land. Near the town, farmers could make some extra money on the side by having additional animals and selling the milk in town. The dairy farmers would fill barrels with milk in the morning and bring it to market on a wagon. Until the late 19th century, the milking of the cow was done by hand. In the United States, several large dairy operations existed in some northeastern states and in the West that involved as many as several hundred cows, but an individual milker could not be expected to milk more than a dozen cows a day. Smaller operations predominated. For most herds, milking took place indoors twice a day, in a barn with the cattle tied by the neck with ropes or held in place by stanchions. Feeding could occur simultaneously with milking in the barn, although most dairy cattle were pastured during the day between milkings. Such examples of this method of dairy farming are difficult to locate, but some are preserved as a historic site for a glimpse into the days gone by. One such instance that is open for this is at Point Reyes National Seashore. Dairy farming has been part of agriculture for thousands of years. Historically, it has been one part of small, diverse farms. In the last century or so, larger farms concentrating on dairy production emerged. Large-scale dairy farming is only viable where either a large amount of milk is required for production of more durable dairy products, such as cheese, butter, etc., or there is a substantial market of people with cash to buy milk, but no cows of their own. Dairy farms were the best way to meet demand. Milking parlors is an innovation in milking, focused on mechanizing the milking parlor, known in Australia and New Zealand as a milking shed, to maximize the number of cows per operator, which streamlined the milking process to permit cows to be milked as if on an assembly line, and to reduce physical stresses on the farmer by putting the cows on a platform slightly above the person milking the cows to eliminate having to constantly bend over. Many older and smaller farms still have tie stall or stanchion barns, but worldwide a majority of commercial farms have parlors. Milking machines are held in place automatically by a vacuum system that draws the ambient air pressure down from 15 to 21 pounds per square inch of vacuum. The vacuum is also used to lift milk vertically through small diameter hoses into the receiving can. A milk lift pump draws the milk from the receiving can through large diameter stainless steel piping through the plate cooler, then into a refrigerated bulk tank. Milk is extracted from the cow's udder by flexible rubber sheaths known as liners or inflations that are surrounded by a rigid air chamber. A pulsating flow of ambient air and vacuum is applied to the inflation's air chamber during the milking process. When ambient air is allowed to enter the chamber, the vacuum inside the inflation causes the inflation to collapse around the cow's teat, squeezing the milk out of teat in a similar fashion as a baby calf's mouth massaging the teat. When the vacuum is reapplied in the chamber, the flexible rubber inflation relaxes and opens up, preparing for the next squeezing cycle. It takes the average cow 3 to 5 minutes to give her milk. Some cows are faster or slower. Slow milking cows may take up to 15 minutes to let down all their milk. Though milking speed is not related to the quality of milk produced by the cow, it does impact the management of the milking process. Because most milkers milk cattle in groups, the milker can only process a group of cows at the speed of the slowest milking cow. For this reason, many farmers will group slow milking cows so as not to stress the faster milking cows. The extracted milk passes through a strainer and plate heat exchangers before entering the tank, where it can be stored safely for a few days at approximately 40 degrees Fahrenheit. At pre-arranged times, a milk truck arrives and pumps the milk from the tank for transport to a dairy factory where it will be pasteurized and processed into many products. The frequency of pickup depends on the production and storage capacity of the dairy. Large dairies will have milk pickups once per day. Certain behaviors such as eating, ruminating, and lying down can be related to the health of the cow and cow comfort. These behaviors can also be related to the productivity of the cows. Likewise, stress, disease, and discomfort negatively affect milk productivity. Therefore, it can be said that it is in the best interest of the farmer to increase eating, rumination, and lying down, and decrease stress, disease, and discomfort to achieve the maximum productivity possible. Also, estrus behaviors such as mounting can be a sign of cow comfort, since if a cow is lame, nutritionally deficient, or housed in an overcrowded barn, its estrus behaviors is altered. Feeding behaviors are important for the dairy cow, as feeding is how the cow ingests dry matter. However, the cow must ruminate to fully digest the feed and utilize the nutrients in the feed. Dairy cows with good rumen health are likely to be more profitable than cows with poor rumen health, as a healthy rumen aids in digestion of nutrients. An increase in the time a cow spends ruminating is associated with the increase in health and an increase in milk production. The productivity of dairy cattle is most efficient when the cattle have a full rumen. Also, the standing action while feeding after milking has been suggested to enhance udder health. The delivery of fresh feed while the cattle are away for milking stimulates the cattle to feed upon return, potentially reducing the prevalence of mastitis, as the sphincters have time to close while standing. This makes the pattern of feeding directly after being milked an ideal method of increasing the efficiency of the herd. Cows have a high motivation to lie down. They should lie down for at least 5 to 6 hours after every meal to ruminate well. When the lactating dairy cow lies down, blood flow is increased to the mammary gland, which in return results in a higher milk yield. When they stand too long, cows become stressed, lose weight, get sore feet, and produce less milk. To ensure that the dairy cows lie down as much as needed, the stalls must be comfortable. A stall should have a rubber mat and bedding and be large enough for the cow to lie down and get up comfortably. Signs that the stalls may not be comfortable enough for the cows are standing, either ruminating or not, instead of lying down, or perching, which is when the cow has its front end in the stall and their back end out of the stall. Dried manure, almond shells, straw, sand, or waters are used for cow bedding. There are 2 types of housing systems in dairy production: freestyle housing and tie stall. Freestyle housing is where the cow is free to walk around and interact with its environment and other members of the herd. Tie stall housing is when the cow is chained to a station stall with the milking units and feed coming to them. Milk is a nutrient-rich liquid food produced by the mammary glands of mammals.